Dashing through the snow on a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, streaming to you live on my PS5. Oh, you see, I added a little something extra to that time. I love that jingle. Oh, I love that jingle. What is up, fam? Merry Christmas, fam. I am outside, and it is a brisk... I know, you're saying, what two Christmas reviews in one day? I know, it's a Christmas miracle. 2 Christmas movie reviews in one day. I am outside, and it is a brisk 24 degrees outside. But you know what? I'm doing okay because I have this... Can you see this? I have this fashionable, badass red one blanket courtesy of AMC Theaters. I am all nice and toasty. What does it say there? It says, ready for takeoff. There it is. There it is. I love this red one blanket. Yeah, I got this. I treated myself. Got myself this little Christmas present. But yeah, real quick, I have to mention, I was remiss. I can't believe I missed this in my Hot Frosty review, but I forgot to mention it's in the trailer. You know, look up the trailer on YouTube when you have like a spare minute or 2 minutes. But there's an epic Mean Girls reference in Hot Frosty, because obviously Lacey Chabert, star of the film, she played Gretchen Wieners, and then Lindsay Lohan played Katie. There's a scene where Lacey Chabert is watching like a scene on TV, like a movie on TV, and it's literally a scene from Lindsay Lohan's new movie on Netflix where she's in the hospital or whatever, and Lacey, she sees it and she says, oh, that's interesting. I went to high school with a girl that looks exactly like that. And I'm like, oh, there it is. There it is. So the Mean Girls metaverse is real. So there you go. That's pretty epic. But yes, that is not our topic for today. Our topic for today is Red One. Okay. This movie's kind of blowing up. All right. Here, and I had to see this movie because I've actually seen it twice now. I saw it in the theater. Okay. It came out in the middle of November, even though it's a Christmas movie. So that the timing of that was very odd. But it just hit streaming. So stream it on Amazon Prime. So now I've watched it again at home on Prime Video. So I've seen it twice now, and I love it. I still love it even on second watch. I love it. This movie is very divisive. Mainly, it's divisive between critics and audiences. So you go on Rotten Tomatoes, right, and you'll see that it has a very low 30% critics score, but then look on the right-hand side of the page, and we have the audience score, or the popcorn meter. I don't know when that happened. Now it's the popcorn meter. I don't know why they had to change that for some reason. But yeah, the popcorn meter is a 90%. Audiences love it. And I believe it is making a decent amount of money, especially for a movie that's also already available on streaming. The movie had quite a budget. It had a $250 million budget. To put in perspective, the Flash movie was a $200 million budget. So this movie was very expensive to make. And there's some controversy. One of the reasons it was so expensive to make, if you didn't know, supposedly, The Rock kind of demanded $50 million for his salary. So he kind of bloated the movie's budget by $50 million. That's pretty bad when one actress... I know he's like the star and he's like a big name and he puts asses in seats and everything, but that's really bad when your star's salary is like negatively affecting the movie's budget that to that degree. But yeah, that's supposedly that's the story. So yeah, I'm kind of annoyed with him as far as that goes. But anyway, this movie it's kind of your generic. It's kind of like, okay, take like, I mean, The Rock, this is his bread and butter, okay? The same way that Lacey Chabert has made 30 Hallmark, romance movies, and she's like, she's just slumming it. She just found her niche and she's just doing it. The Rock found his niche. The Rock is like, okay, I do movies like Rampage. I do movies like Skyscraper. I do movies like Jumanji. I just do these big dumb action movies that are some are blockbusters. So that's kind of what Red One is, but it has, it's not generic because it's a rock action movie for sure, but it's a Christmas theme, okay? It's a 100% a Christmas movie. It's about Santa Claus getting kidnapped, for crying out loud. So yeah, it's a Christmas movie. It's not even like how some people try to argue, like, oh, well, Die Hard's a Christmas movie because it takes place on Christmas, and I think there's one scene where you see a Christmas tree. Like, no. Red One, the whole damn movie is nothing but Christmas imagery, okay? It is a Christmas movie. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And it's a really fun movie. This is where, like, I don't know what critics' problem is sometimes, and I'm not even like a totally anti-critic person. Like, I agree with critics on a lot of things. I do. For example, earlier this year, The Substance, that horror film, got great critic reviews. I mean, I loved it. It's probably my favorite movie of the year. And I was reading all of the critic reviews. I was just reading. I wanted to know what people were saying about this, amazing movie. I wanted to hear some discussions about it, about its themes, about the plot, about, the symbolism. And, I was loving it. I was reading the critic reviews. I loved it. But with Red One, quite a different story. I mean, what this reminds me the most of actually is something like you have situations like this with if you remember way back, what was it, like 2012 or so, Adam Sandler did a movie called Pixels. Okay, that video game movie with, like, the cover has like Pac-Man like eating a house or something on the cover. I loved it. I think it's a really fun movie. And I think a lot of audiences did like it, but the critics, it was like, that has an even lower score. I think it has like a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics eviscerated it. Critics, like, there was blood in the water, and critics just like went after that movie. And it's a dumb summer movie. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not going to win any Academy Awards, but like the way that people attacked it, I still don't really get it to this day. And on the audience side, I think people did like it. I think it did make its money back. But yeah, I see a similar divide here with Red One, and once again, I'm kind of sticking up for the dumb summer movie. I mean, again, it's you got, as I say the same thing. Another similar ones like the Venom movies. It's like you got to know what you're getting in for. Like you got to know what you're signing up for. If you want to like have a good time, if you're ready for like a dumb cliche action movie. And in this case, it's like a schmaltz. It's dumb action cliches combined with schmaltzy, sappy Christmas movie cliches. So, so just cliches all around. But it's got a great cast. I think that's part of the reason why the movie's budget was so high. I mean, you have obviously The Rock, who costs $50 million. Playing our main character. We also have Chris Evans, aka Captain America. So he's the second lead. We have Lucy Liu. We have J.K. Simmons playing Santa Claus. I mean, it's a stacked cast. It's a star-studded cast. And it clearly, it so wants to be a Marvel movie. In fact, that's the way I would describe this. It's a Marvel. It's like a Marvel movie and a Christmas movie did the fusion dance, like in Dragon Ball Z. They did the fusion dance. I mean, it has a freaking Marvel movie cast, doesn't it? But yeah, so let's, and I'm going to kind of go into spoilers. I'm going to kind of talk about the whole movie. So, like, my recommendation, I'd give it like a solid 7 out of 10. I'd say go see the film, especially if it's on Prime and you already have Prime. It doesn't cost you anything extra. Yeah, just pop it on. Just pop it on. Watch it with the family. You're going to have a good time. Okay, so the film starts out, and I really liked how the movie starts, okay, because it shows Jack, who is Chris Evans' character, as a child, and it shows him basically how he's, kind of jaded. He's a cynic. He doesn't believe in Santa Claus, and he kind of proves it to all of his little friends. Like, he opens the closet and shows that there's, the presents are already there. There's no Santa Claus. But in that sequence, it shows how, he's already an expert at, pickpocketing. He bumps into the dad and already and gets the keys to the closet from him, and then it flash forwards to when he's an adult and he's doing the same shtick. Like, he's stealing people's coffee and bumping into people, taking their keys, taking their ID cards, and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really good transition. And the way that the movie begins, he does some antics, and he starts a fire as a distraction and all that. And then the logo, the Red One logo pops up, and it's to the tune of Mariah Carey's Christmas. I mean, that's iconic. That's iconic. That's a song you're definitely going to hear around the holidays that I really like. But yeah, we go right to a little mall Santa thing where it's J.K. Simmons as Santa. And yeah, it's cool. He's talking to Callum Drift, who's played by The Rock. And The Rock is going through some stuff. He's been, Santa's right-hand man for so long, but he wants to retire. He's basically sent in his letter of resignation. He's become disillusioned. He says that, like, yeah, like I my heart's not in it anymore, and he gives like this whole thing about how, he still loves the kids, but it's the adults that killed it for him. Like, there are so many more every he makes a whole point about how every year more and more people end up on the naughty list as opposed to the nice list, and like people, they just don't care anymore. Like, everyone is just kind of a scumbag now. Like, everyone's just kind of losing their morals and all, and like he just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. And yeah, it's sad. It's sad. So obviously we're setting up like a little arc for him. And yeah, again, it's The Rock. He's known for dumb action movies like Fast and Furious, and I think one of the writers from that franchise has a credit on this movie, because there's definitely a line where he's talking to Santa about retiring, and Santa's like, well, like, do this one last ride, like do this like one last Christmas with me. Let's go for one last ride. And it's like, yeah, it's a little wink, wink, yeah, like Fast and Furious. I got you. But yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple of odd things in this movie. I'll get to that right now. So it's odd to me that obviously, like, you have, okay, so J.K. Simmons in real life, I mean, he's jacked. He works out. I don't know how old he's up there in years, but I mean, he still has the muscles. If you saw Whiplash, that's one of my favorite movies. He stars in Whiplash. Like, I mean, he's jacked in that. He's like, really intimidating as far as his physique. And yeah, he's even more jacked as Santa, and he has The Rock spot him as he's like banging and clanging the weights, and it's like, okay, oh wow, Santa's really buff. Like, is there like a point to that? Like, I guess maybe the whole joke was just that you wouldn't expect Santa to be buff at his age. But like, I thought they were setting up like, oh, like Santa's gonna like really kick some ass too in this movie, or like, he's gonna like no, not really. Like, he doesn't, when he gets captured, he doesn't put up much of a fight. Like, so it's like, I don't really know what the point of him being so ripped was, And then it's similar to another character you'll see on the poster. There's this animal character, this like sentient polar bear named Garcia. And like, he's implied to be like kind of the muscle. I mean, he's a freaking polar bear, right? He's implied to be kind of the muscle of the team, and he never does anything. Like, he gets captured right away too. It's just like, and I think the problem the writers ran into was like, they're like, well, we have two characters that are kind of like the muscle, but like The Rock is the muscle. Like, he's the bodyguard. It's like, so Santa doesn't need to be buff, and like, we don't need this. We don't need Garcia because we don't need two like strength only character, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, but then why did you write them like that? It's like, you should have figured that out before you made the movie, bro. So yeah, I mean, the movie has flaws. The movie has flaws, and I know the Rock is pretty egotistical. So like, he's full of, he always needs to be the star. So I wonder if that was like a thing in his contract. He's like, well, no one can be stronger than me. Like, I have to be like the muscle on the team. So that's why they had to like seriously sideline Garcia, and Santa had to be like taken out immediately. Like, I don't know. I mean, and it's one of those, like, yeah, don't think too hard about it. I mean, if Santa doesn't get taken out, if he doesn't get kidnapped, we don't have a movie. So it's one of those. But yeah. So basically, Jack, unbeknownst to him, Jack, who's played by Chris Evans, and then yeah, Jack. Man, that's two movies I've seen today that the male lead was named Jack. But yeah, Jack, probably a reference to Jack Frost. But yeah, we're being very cheeky. But yeah, Jack, he's now an adult like hacker. He like he finds people. He sells information on like the dark web or whatever. And unbeknownst to him, like, he finds the coordinates of Santa's like hidden, invisible, whatever toy shop in the Arctic, and he gives it to the bad guys. Okay, and that's how they find Santa and then break it and they kidnap him. But what's so cool in that scene is, how do I put this? So like, the henchman captures Santa, right? And the leader, the woman, she like kind of walks up, and she's wearing like a full parka, snow outfit, snow goggles, everything. And all she does is she like pulls the goggles off, so you just see her eyes, and she says like a quick line of dialogue, bring him to me, or something like that. But like, she doesn't talk that much. And I love that. And that doesn't even happen until like 20 minutes into the film. Okay, so many movies don't take their time, and this is where I'm going to really praise the movie. It's not a perfect movie, like I said. There's flaws for sure. I didn't give it like a perfect 10, but there's praiseworthy elements here, and this is what I'm going to focus on here. Um, more movies. This is what I'm saying. Is like this movie's good because like I'm saying, take notes. Like other movies, take notes on this movie. Do what this movie did because I like the slow build up, the slow reveal of a villain, which we don't see that often. Like we don't see that enough. Okay, I'm thinking of like think back to like, I mean he wasn't a villain, but think back to like Indiana Jones. You remember how they would do like that slow epic reveal? Like at first you would like just see the silhouette, like just the shadow. You might see his like his boots. You might see him pick up his hat and put it on his head, but you don't see his face. And then eventually they reveal his face, and then you hear him talk, and it's like da 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 da. It's like a big dramatic like epic reveal. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, and that's what they do here. Where the witch's name is Grilla. We find that out later. But Grilla, like at first, or Grilla, however you say it. So that first scene, you hear her talk like for a second, but you don't really hear her talk yet, and you don't see her face. She's totally covered, and then she takes off the goggles, and you just see her eyes for a second, and that's it. They made you wait 20 minutes for that, okay? And then 40 minutes, so 20 minutes later, so 40 minutes into the film, when she has Santa captured, she finally like walks up to him and starts talking, and you see her full face revealed, but she's still wearing the parka. It's not until later in the movie that she like reveals her actual witch costume. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I love it. I love that like gradual reveal. Okay, that's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for in these dumb action movies. Anyway, but yeah. So The Rock works for a group called ELF or ELF. Just think of like basically the Christmas version of S.H.I.E.L.D., okay? and Lucy Liu is like the head of ELF. She's the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., okay? They capture Chris Evans, they bring him in, and they say like, hey, like, we need your help to find the people who killed Santa because you're the one that sold them the information, blah, blah, blah. And that's where Garcia, he has like his one scene where I like how, him and The Rock, they basically play like good, bad cop, worst cop type of thing. Like they're going to like beat up Chris Evans and get the information out of him. And then Garcia like goes away forever. But it's a really fun scene when they first bring him in, because when they first bring in Jack in, because he's like, they're like interrogating everyone, and they're interrogating. So that's where the movie, like, I wish it went further. So there's definitely like, I like the movie, but like I wish it went further. So like this movie, it's not just a Christmas movie. I mean, it is, but like what it reminded me of is like there's like this whole hidden world of magical creatures, supernatural creatures. Like it really reminded me of like Artemis Fowl, for example. There's like this hidden world, and like again, so S.H.I.E.L.D., or excuse me, ELF, which is like this movie's version of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's not just Christmas related stuff. They deal with all sorts of like mythical, supernatural things. I mean, in that scene where Chris Evans walks in, they're interrogating the Headless Horseman, for example. You know what I mean? And she's like, yeah, we're going over all the usual suspects. And then Chris Evans kind of jokes. He's like, oh, what, like, you guys like talk to Nessie and Bigfoot? And she's like, yeah, we do. like you don't see him, but like she's like, yeah. I mean, she doesn't deny that. She's like, yeah, we do. Like, so like I wish the movie went more into stuff like that, which it would have been cool. I mean, maybe if this movie makes enough money and they make a Red 1 too, maybe they make a sequel, that'd be really cool to see. Like go further into like that other stuff that we only got a brief taste of. You know what I mean? Because we already did everything. We did everything we could with the Christmas theme in this movie. But yeah, so Chris Evans, he agrees to help them. And then he and Dwayne Johnson, they're like the classic buddy cop duo. Like Chris Evans is the smart-ass wisecracker, and Dwayne Johnson is like the straight-laced. He's the straight man. He's the stoic one, What's really funny is I love how when Chris Evans first hears about it, he's like, oh, are you an elf? And Dwayne Johnson like freaks out. He's like, Cal freaks out. He's like, no, don't call me that. I'm not an elf. I just work for ELF. What's so hard to understand? But then later he's like talking to him. He's like, so are you like a human? He's like, no, I'm not a human. So and then like and then there's like this really cool action scene when they have to fight like these abominable snowmen. That's probably my favorite action scene in the movie. Is like they're in Aruba trying to find what's his name, Nick Kroll. Yeah, the comedian Nick Kroll's in this. Again, they have a lot of big names. Nick Kroll, he's not funny in this though. Like Nick Kroll, he's in it. It's one of those things like you know how the comedian Bill Burr is in Breaking Bad, but he's not funny, but he's in it. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, Nick Kroll is in this movie. He's not funny. His character's not funny, but like he's in the movie. But yeah, they go to Aruba to find Nick Kroll, and that's when the witch kind of attacks because yeah, let me rewind a second. And this was another thing I really loved in the movie. It's there's where it gets genuinely kind of spooky. Okay, there's actually some tension here where Nick Kroll is like terrified of his boss. Like he's like, I can't tell you who I work for. Like I literally can't say her name. And then Dwayne Johnson's like, he's smart. He's like, Cal's smart. He's like, well, okay, you can't say it, but can you like write it in the sand? And so he does. He writes her name in the sand. And then Chris Evans is an idiot. And he's just like, oh, well, like how do you say that? Like Grilla. And the other two turn around like, no, you idiot. Like what? You know, don't say it. Like so as soon as anyone says her name, she knows immediately like who said it and where. It's because Kiernan Shipka, that's another big name. That's who plays Grilla in this. Kiernan Shipka, who stars as Sabrina in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Like that's a show I keep talking about. I need to watch it. I need to just sit down and watch it. I know I'd love that show. And apparently I was like doing some research. Like Grilla is in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, so like that's like another nod to Sabrina. But yeah, I mean Sabrina, Kiernan Shipka plays a witch, Sabrina, in that show, so like I think that was like a little mini nod as well, like casting her as the Christmas witch Grilla, which I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I had to look her up. So that they did the research. They looked into like, you know, Icelandic folklore stories and shit. But yeah, there's a Christmas witch Grilla. She like, you know, kidnaps like naughty children and eats them and stuff. Like it's pretty demented. But yeah, so I like that idea of like names having power. Like that's such a thing in like, you know, folk tales. Like think of like Rumpelstiltskin. If you like actually figure out his name, you have power over him. That type of shit. But or think of like in Harry Potter, right? When you know Voldemort was so scary and powerful, it's like people were just they had to call him He Who Must But Not Be Named because they couldn't even say his name. They were so terrified of him. You know, names have power. They totally do. But yeah, I like that idea where like no one's like everyone's afraid to say her name. No one can say her name because if you say her name, she'll like know immediately. She'll know where you are and like, you know. And it's spooky the way he says, as soon as Chris Evans says her name, she like spins around and reveals her true, you know, witch costume and everything. And like the Aruba beach that they're on instantly turns into like this like icy hellscape. And then my like favorite action sequence begins. This like really creepy like ice cream man truck like rolls up, like it like pulls up out of the water. And like it's playing this like creepy music, and then these like jacked like abominable snowmen pop out with like weapons and shit, and then The Rock and Chris Evans have to fight them. And this is where like I love it because like The Rock keeps on saying like he's not an elf. Well, it turns out, you know, he has this technology where he can click his boots and like gets, you know, short, so he basically is an elf. But yeah, like that's fun. Like he does that a couple times in the movie. Like he clicks his boots, and you know he grows. You know, once you get tiny, you can like punch upwards and punch someone right in the crotch, or he'll like climb on the back of a snowman like it's freaking Shadow of the Colossus or something. You know, it's really fun. All of his technology was like, again, I think this whole world was really cool. This whole like secret world, like all of their technology was like really cool. The Rock has like this, you know, special bracelet, and like he can shoot this beam. It's kind of like Ant-Man. Again, this movie is very much like a Marvel movie, but like it's like Ant-Man's powers, where it's like how do I put this? I love this, where like when he and Chris Evans go into a toy store, it's like they're, you know, it's like an armory. Like they're you know, gearing up for battle. And it's like you pull any toys off the shelf, and he can make toys become real. So he'll pull like a Hot Wheels car off the shelf, and then he can hit it with his ray, and it becomes a real car. And there's a funny joke where like Chris Evans is like, oh wait, does that work for anything? Like can I get a Wonder Woman action figure? He's like, no, that's not how that works. You know, it doesn't work for everything. You know, calm down. You know, that's where his. I mean, admitted, like, that's probably where a lot of guys' minds would go towards anyway. But yeah, so they have like this cool fight scene with the snowmen, and they're trying everything. Like nothing is working. Like Chris Evans even like melts one on like this barbecue grill, but it doesn't really work. And what's interesting, I noticed in that scene, he like melts the dude's head and torso, and the carrot briefly catches fire, but he puts out the flame on the carrot, like the snowman does. He like, puts out the flame. And so like that was a little detail I like, because it is revealed in the next scene that yes, if you damage the carrot, like the rock's about to be choked to death, he like pulls out the carrot. That's what makes the snowman poof, like he just falls apart. So that's their weakness. But yeah, so what else? So Chris Evans has this whole thing where like he's kind of a deadbeat dad, and he's like estranged from his son, and you can see where this is going. Like the movie circumstances happen such that So Kiernan Shipka's whole plan, Grila's whole plan, is she has this like device called the Glaskafig, this like glass container. It's a snow globe, but she's like capturing naughty people and like holding them prisoner. And there's like this whole thing where she captures the son. So Chris Evans is like, well, I have to go after him. So he lets himself be captured as well. And they have like this heart-to-heart talk. It's typical like Christmas movie schmaltzy. But again, like this is what you sign on for. You know what I mean? It's sentimental. It's saccharine, but it's whatever. But yeah, they grow closer. They have like this moment because they were both on the naughty list. But like by them, having like a heart-to-heart and like growing closer, they had like a nice moment. So now they're not on the naughty list as much. So the glass coffee breaks and they escape. It's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of like, and this is like a soft spot for me. Like, I love like anytime they throw random German words into a movie. So yeah, that happens a lot in this. Like they have the Glaskopf. They make Krampus. They meet Krampus. Yeah, so I thought the villain, because I saw him on a poster, I thought Krampus would be the villain of the movie, and he's like a mini boss. Like you get like two cool villains for the price of one. That's why I love this movie. But yeah, at first they think Krampus is behind this, or at least he's like working with Grilla, because apparently they used to be lovers. They were a couple, and that's in the folk story. They were like a couple at one point. They were both like delivering punishments to naughty children. Blah blah blah. So Chris Evans and The Rock, they have to go to Krampus's like whatever land and confront him on Krampusnacht, Krampus night, Krampusnacht. But they play Krampusschlapp. Krampus loves games, so like they enter this contest where they take turns slapping one another, and the first one to go down loses, that type of thing. And that's really funny because like The Rock does his best to like slap Krampus, and Krampus kind of like shrugs it off, and then he slaps The Rock, and The Rock gets up and he has like this giant freaking red handprint on his face, and like they could have done more with that. Like I would have tweaked that scene a little bit to make it a little funnier, where it's like, because the way they do it, he just kind of like gets up and like, yeah, it's funny you see the handprint, but like I would have done something like have a line where like The Rock, like you only see like the back of his head. He like gets up, you see the back of his head, and Chris Evans is like looking at him, and you see Chris Evans' like expression. He's like, oh my god, and The Rock's just like, what, is it my face? Like, is my face okay? And then Chris Evans trying to be like, oh yeah, your face is fine, and then the camera pans around and you see like the horrible big red handprint. You know what I mean? Like just tweak it like that. Like that would be so much funnier if you like do it the way I just suggested it. I'm acting like I'm some sort of big shot movie director, but I'm just saying it's like, yeah, I can think of like a funnier way to tweak that to make that funnier. But anyway, yeah, they have their little contest with Krampus. That was cool too. So The Rock, like I that's another thing. I wish they just did more with this, but yeah, I wish they did more with like the toys, because he like stocks up on all these toys in the toy store. But and they talk about how like toy stores, every back of a toy store, they're all connected. It's like a like in Harry Potter, the port keys or whatever, like all the portals are connected. So all the toy stores are connected through like a portal system. But yeah, they don't do enough with like the toys coming to life. But yeah, in that Krampus scene, The Rock has like two Rock'em Sock'em robots. So he like brings them to life and they start punching the demons. It's cool. It's cool. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, they confront Grilla at the end of the film, and it's cool. The way they defeat her, it's one of those like everyone needs to band together. Like even Krampus has a change of heart, and he had like a tiny mini arc too. Like he has a change of heart. He like flies over on his sled and like he like beats up Grilla, and then Santa breaks out of his like a containment chamber, and he gets the reindeer to attack Grilla. It's really cool. It's one of those it's one of those. But yeah, and then of course by the end of the film, like you know where it's going. Like it's very predictable. But yeah, like the Rock, you know, Chris Evans has reunited with his son. He's like patched things up, and then the Rock has like a vision where he had this whole thing of like, oh, I can't see, you know, the children. I don't give a shit about the children. I don't give a shit about the adults because the adults are all jaded and assholes. And then J.K. Simmons, you know, Sano said something about like, oh, you need to be able to still see the child within the adult. And that's what you know. At the end of the film, The Rock is looking at Chris Evans, and he sees the child Chris Evans from the start of the film. And so he's like, "Oh, I can finally see the adults, you know, the kids and within the adults." And you know, he got it back. So like he's not going to retire anymore. So it has a very sappy, you know, ending. But that's what you signed on for. I don't know. I was leafing through some of the critical reviews, and I don't really agree. Like a lot of the points they made were again they called the film derivative, which is true. They called the film overly sentimental and schmaltzy. I mean, it's a Christmas movie. They called it cliche. They called it dumb. You know, yeah. it's a Dwayne Johnson action movie. What do you want? You know. Yeah, I mean, and then a couple of comments of like similar to what I said, where it's like, oh, I wish they went further with this idea, or wish they expanded upon this like lore detail. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I agree. I hope there's another movie where they can go further into this, explore this world a little bit more, explore like the, you know, inner workings, or, you know, investigate some other problem that's not related to Santa. Because again, this like organization, this SHIELD group, like they deal with all sorts of stuff. You know, deal with another holiday, perhaps. You know, I don't know. But yeah, and then some reviews, like the guy, I mean, were you just not paying attention? Because like some critics, this one guy I was reading, he was like, oh, like why, you know, why does The Rock want to retire? He just like all of a sudden wants to retire. He didn't like explain why. I'm like, he literally did though. Like he did explain why. He became disillusioned. Like he couldn't see the child within the adults, and he stopped caring about the adults. Like he literally explained it. So maybe you went to the bathroom during that scene. I don't know what to say. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they talked about how like, oh, like this detail or this plot point was dropped, and like nothing was dropped. I mean, they did go back to it. They showed you at the end that The Rock did have a change of heart, and that's why he came out of retirement, or decided to not retire. It's not like he just reached a decision out of nowhere. Same thing with Chris Evans and like. Same thing with Chris Evans and his son. It's like, yeah, they had like a whole thing about like, oh yeah, like I was keeping my distance because I didn't think I was a good person, so like I didn't want to mess up my son by being a bad influence on him. But then The Rock, like, kind of by spending time with him, he convinces him like, oh no, you are a good guy. I mean, you went back for me, you saved me, so like obviously you're not a totally bad dude. And it goes into like the whole thing about like the naughty versus nice system, where it's like, you know, is it right to kind of write people off as like, oh, well, you're, yeah, I mean, that was the whole thing with Chris Evans' character, right? Because they're like, oh, he's a class 4 naughty lister, so like that's what he is. He's a bad guy, and like they don't like leave much room for like, oh, but couldn't he get off the naughty list? Like, can't he become a good guy? You know, isn't there a chance for change? And yeah, we go into that, like we see that by the end of the film. So I don't know. Again, it's not like an amazing movie. It's not going to change your life, but like as far as like a fun holiday watch, I'm already going, you know, too far over time, and I'm freezing to death out here. I have my nice little blanket, but it's still pretty damn cold. So I'm gonna wrap it up, chat. I'm gonna wrap it up, fam. But yeah, no, I say give it a shot. You got 2 hours to spare. It's a fun watch. It's a fun Christmas watch. It's a fun watch for the family. The only thing I'll say is, yeah, it's a PG-13. I wouldn't show it to the real youngins because there's no like real blood or gore from what I remember, but like there's some surprising amount of swearing. Like people say a lot. They'll say like, you know, bullshit, dickhead, you know, goddamn, like you know no F-bombs, but like there is some swearing. It ain't no Disney movie. I'll say that. It's no Pixar movie. It's no Disney movie. Like no, they're swearing. There's some cussing. So like I wouldn't show it to the real youngins, but it's a PG-13 for sure. All right, guys. Yeah. So once again, I mean, if it's still playing in theaters, I want this movie to do well. I want to make its bloated $250 million budget back. So like, see it in a theater if possible. But you know, if you can't, like, it's streaming on Prime, so just pop it on the TV on Prime if you get the chance. All right. See you.